Hello, everybody. We are live. Let's see if I can figure things out. Tilt this over here. I'm excited because this is a live that I'm doing with someone that I just met through the Clubhouse app about a week ago. So her and I have been getting to know each other through that app. So I'm super excited to be doing a live with her here. See, there we go. Hey, Jesse. Jesse, I see that you're actually on the West Coast, which I'm a little jealous of. I'm working with a couple of my friends to get them all organized for our Clubhouse, and all of them are on the West Coast as well. So trying to get all of that organized with different time zones. Yeah, I wish I was in California right now, but I'm here in Virginia working, doing my best. How's everybody doing? See if we can get KJ on. There's a lot of people on right now. I hope you guys are doing well. Yeah, I feel like I haven't seen any of my friends in person since my birthday back in September. Kind of been the pandemic keeping me in my solo roots, hanging out with myself and people online. How's everybody doing? Good morning. I am almost done with the day, so don't curse me with reliving it. I've been doing pretty good. How are you guys doing? I wish that Instagram Live would just let you send an invite to someone that you need to pull into the live instead of having to wait. That's never fun. Let's see. Boom. Send. It's actually really hot in my office right now, so I'm like trying to survive by drinking water. Hello from Greece. You guys, if you haven't already jumped on the Clubhouse app, you most definitely need to get on there. Right now it's invite only, but you can actually submit a request. And you can submit a request, and if there's anyone that's in the Clubhouse app that has you saved in their contacts, they'll actually get a notification, and then they can let you into Clubhouse, which is kind of how I got in there. You like my teeth? That's interesting. Uh, it's funny because I've always been really insecure about the way my teeth look. So the fact that people like my smile, I appreciate that. Hello from Brazil. Yeah, I mean, lives are still kind of new on Instagram. It's fun. It's a great way to kind of get to know the people that you're following on a different level than just liking their pictures. And it's a little bit more of an interactive way that you can kind of get to know people and interacting with them. So like if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them throughout the live. Hello.
Oh, hi. Look at us. We're all matchy.
Yeah,
Whoa.
we got the yellow going.
Who knew, man? We are in sync, dude.
Bye.
Right. Oh my God. So cute. So cute. So I don't know what you all were just talking about because I was just peeing and getting coffee. But have you talked about hi everybody, how we were just doing a Clubhouse?
Yes, I was trying to get everybody to like start sending in their requests because as soon as this app goes public, like I want everyone, like I love that platform so much because one, you get so many more people in a room, and two,
Yeah.
like the connections that we've been making on that platform are just like phenomenal.
It's silly stupid. Like literally everybody, hi everybody who's joining. Hi, hi, hi. Um, it's so genuine and it's so generous. Like people, what I've loved about being able to host some of the rooms, and it's been so fun getting to know you and having you in, you add so much gold, so much value. And I'm punch drunk. I'm so tired right now. It's like stupid. So just bear with me. We did this clubhouse. It was supposed to be 60 minutes, but it was fire, right? Like it just was so, so good. We were so lucky to have the panelists that we did. And we ended up going 90 minutes. And I literally, I direct messaged Ben here, and I was like, is it wrong that I want to do our live from bed? Like, can we just do it from bed? Because again, it's so fun, and you meet so many incredible people, but it's a lot of energy out
Yeah.
too.
And like my friend actually tuned in for the clubhouse, and she messaged me, and she was just like, she literally has a voice for like radio, because like on lives and stuff, like you can like get a little crazy, or like we were talking about dancing to like keep people entertained, but like in a clubhouse, like you could do it from bed because you don't get to see
So
anybody. But like the voice, like your excitement, I love it, because and I also love how you tie everybody in, so it's just like that other people are kind of sitting there and they're giving their time, and you were just kind of like, oh, I really love what you said there, and like that, I feel like that ties in with this person. And I was just like, this is like a perfect room. It's functioning so well.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. I think that that's a skill that anybody can learn. I can tell you where I first learned it was actually 1,000 years ago. When I first came to LA from New Hampshire, I was acting. And this was such a full circle moment for anyone who was on the clubhouse with us, or if you weren't, I'm catching you up. A bazillion years ago, I was acting for about a hot minute, and I did a bunch of stuff for MTV. And two of the panelists were Q from Total Request Live, if anybody remembers, Hottie Patati Q from late 90s, early 2000s. And then Vinny, who was like head of casting and development executive, he might have even cast me in MTV's Undressed. I don't know. We still don't know. Like the jury's out. But what I will tell you is that ability to synthesize and bring panelists together, it really is a skill that anybody can learn, but it requires active listening.
Yes.
And that's what you learn. That's really the art of acting, right? And the art of improvisation is active listening. So you're present, but you're always kind of in the background, drawing the dots, connecting the dots.
Yeah.
It's also why I'm so freaking tired, because your brain is firing like 1,000 miles an hour afterwards. But if anybody wants to learn that skill, you should direct message me, because it's a really fun thing to learn, but it's also a really useful thing to learn, whether you're on camera or on stage, or even just with your families or with your partner or in a team if you're working internally. Like knowing how to actively listen and synthesize and bring people together is a huge leadership quality for sure. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I do love that we're twinning. We're totally twinning right now.
Yeah, it's perfect. I don't have the pink. I would love to. I'm more of like, I'm going like black over here. So,
dude, I'm digging it. We're like the mustard gold 70s. Although I'm kind of rocking like 80s jeans. I don't really know what's happening, to be honest. What is funny too about Clubhouse? This is hilarious. So Clubhouse, and like you just show up, nobody sees you. It's amazing. It occurred to me about 5 minutes ago that this was not audio. And I was like, oh my God, I like didn't do my hair. I don't have a cute outfit. What was I thinking? But I just forgot, right? So this is what's happening.
Yeah. So I feel like the amazing thing about Clubhouse is the topics. The unfortunate thing right now is the fact that not everyone can get in yet. It's still in beta mode. It's still being built. If everyone in the world jumped on it right now, it would probably crash it and be days before it got back up. So
really
the
true.
fact that you were willing to jump on and do a live here for the people that follow us on our Instagram platforms is awesome. Like, I think the first panel that we did where we talked about pivoting, I feel like that is something that I've always been extremely passionate about. So I was super excited when that was kind of what your topic was for discussion.
How cool. I didn't know that, man.
I feel like everyone can definitely benefit from learning how to pivot and understanding like sometimes life throws you a pivot that you're going to have to roll with the punches. And I think that that discussion that we had, like everyone that was on there was just like putting out so much amazing information. And I still wish those types of things were like recorded to where you're like, oh my God, I just listened to this awesome like podcast. Like you guys need to hear it. But I mean, I
Well,
understand why they don't do it, but I still
well,
think that it's
I,
amazing.
I have a confession. I tried to record it.
Uh-huh.
I tried to record it. I even said at the top, I don't know, there was like 100 people or something in that room. I said at the top, like, hey, everybody, just so you know, we're going to record this so y'all can get the replay. Because I knew it was going to be just mad value. And it was like, it was so, so good, right? I was taking notes the whole time. So many teachings and learnings and takeaways and tactical stuff, like real tools, tips, strategies. And of course, some just like anecdotal behind the scenes stories. But here's the thing. I don't know if Clubhouse didn't let me record it. I don't know
Oh.
if I just messed up. I only hear me. so so I have a recording of me like asking questions, and that's lame. And I don't know what I did wrong. I don't know if it that the app doesn't want you to record it. I got to figure that out. I don't know if I should have used GarageBand instead of Voice Memo, which is what I used on my phone. These are things we don't know. The jury is out. We don't really need to talk about it right now, but just so you know, if you ever want to try to record Clubhouse, do not do the error that I just did. You will be bummed. But I think you raise a good point. What makes it so cool is that you got to be present and you got to be in the room, right? So there's something about that that's kind of fun, right? And you can't be multitasking, although technically I guess you can, when there's such amazing people that you would normally never have access to, right? Or very rarely have access to. And they're dropping wisdom and nuggets and tactical advice. You don't want to be ping-ponging around 12 different screens. You want to be fully present so that you can ask a question. And again, that goes back to that idea of active listening, right? So that is what's very, very cool. I love that you brought up the pivoting thing too. I didn't know that. I love that that's something that feels like a theme in your life. I feel like it's something that's so resonant with so many people right now, coming off of 2020, which was such a dumpster fire of a year. It was
I
such
just
a
feel
hot mess.
like when it comes to our life, like I was saying in that room, I feel like we all think that we've got this like structure set up for ourselves. And 2020 really just proved that, hey, I'm going to throw you a pandemic and just pull everything you thought you had for 2020. Like, good luck
Yes.
reorganizing your life. And I just think that learning how to pivot and becoming comfortable with chaos instead of, okay, everything's in order, stress myself out, but it's all in order, because all it takes is one person to knock it all down. And
Oh, so true.
pivoting is so important, because I've learned that my life is less stressful when, yes, I create plans, I have goals, but in life, I've just become comfortable kind of like guiding my way through it. I've learned to depend on myself and not so much on other people. But I do bring other people into my life. I just don't create this huge life like choice or plan dependent on someone else, because we know that maybe something happens to them. And then not only is their life on a pivot, now mine's on an unexpected pivot. So I think it's really important to become comfortable with chaos and know that at any point, like, things can kind of shift. And if you just get more comfortable with creating your own pivots, when smaller pivots or big pivots come your way, it's just like, oh, well, I'm pretty much a professional pivoter right now, so I got this.
Right. And I think, again, if anybody's just tuning in here, or if you're going to watch the replay afterwards, we just did an awesome IG. I keep saying the wrong thing. We're doing an IG live. This is how tired I am. This is how punch drunk. We just did an incredible Clubhouse that I was so lucky to have Ben on. And we're talking now about pivoting. Pivoting is literally a theme that has been in my adult life the entire time. Like, when I actually track back, and I've been an adult for a while now. I'm not that young. I ain't old, but I'm not that young. When I track back, I realize, oh, wow, I pivoted so many times. I pivoted when I left college and I decided to come out and be an actor. I pivoted when my friend and best friend, really. She was my roommate, got cancer suddenly. And the juxtaposition of living with someone, I was so young, 23 years old, uh, who's in hospice and dying and fighting for her life. And I'm doing like dumb commercials and music videos and um, B horror movies. That juxtaposition didn't feel in alignment. I felt like I'd outgrown the industry. It was so marginalizing, it was so trivializing, it was so sexualizing. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? And I pivoted because I needed more creative control. And I was recognizing life is so short. Like, what the hell am I doing? Puppeting lines that aren't even my own, trying to always be skinnier, trying to always be funnier, trying to always be sexier. Like, it was insatiable. And so I got behind the camera and did photography and then was filmmaking and doing producing. And that gave me a sense of purpose and creative direction and a little bit more autonomy. And then even then, behind the camera, as a photographer, your job, in addition to taking beautiful photos, is to make people feel comfortable. And oftentimes, the most beautiful people, the most talented people, the most celebrated, I photographed a lot of celebrities, are still really awkward and still have a lot of self-hatred and still feel really
I'm
like,
awkward.
right. I mean, like, hello, if you're awkward, raise your hand because we got you. Um, and so I realized like, oh, I kept wanting to put the camera down and just have a heart to heart with these people, right? Because I could see, oh, they're turning something on. And actually the best moments captured were the moments in between,
Yep.
where they weren't trying to be sexy or cute or funny, right? It was like when they looked away and they thought the camera was down, that was the shot. And it was the same thing with producing and storytelling and interviewing. You know, you can write an interview and interview a subject, let's say for a documentary, and they might be a seasoned person on camera and they might just give you the same sound bites that they've given to every, you know, television entity or any press that they've ever done. But what you really want is you want to get to the heart of like, what's the thing that they're not going to say by rote? Like, what's the thing that's going to actually penetrate this conversation in a new way? And so again, it was a pivot from acting and wanting to have more control and getting behind the camera. But then it was a pivot even with being behind the camera. Then I wanted to put the camera down and I just wanted to be with people so I could really hear their story. I could really have a sincere connection. And then that pivoted me into being so fascinated by psychology and neuroscience and dynamics of relationships, which led to a pivot of coaching and speaking and podcasting and hosting live events and gathering people, right? So it's so funny how pivoting is something that can be celebratory because it can actually allow you to become more and more yourself with each iteration.
Yeah.
But if it's a pivot that you haven't chosen, and I have also experienced that, where you're talking about, right, like the rug gets ripped out from under you, 7.8 billion of us experienced that in 2020. And it's unfair and it's unjust and it's unexpected. And you're ill prepared, ill equipped, exhausted, sad, terrified. There's nothing sexy about it, right?
No.
And yet, in all of those instances, whether it's a pivot by choice or it's a pivot by crisis, you got to be able to figure out, how am I going to be resilient?
Yeah.
How am I going to make a meaning out of this that's more powerful than maybe what the circumstance looks like? And so that's really what I feel so grateful to be able to help people do. Like strategically pivot if, let's say, you want to start with a podcast or launching a brand or, you know, writing a book, hosting live events, whatever it is. But also if life hands you a grenade and blows up everything and you suddenly are like, wow, the future I thought I was going to have is now my past. I don't know who I am. I don't know where to go. I can't even see straight.
Yeah.
Or let's say it's not even that dramatic. Let's say it's a feeling of I don't know where I belong, but I know I don't belong here. I know I've outgrown this project, this person, this place. And so I just got to find that next right thing. You know, there's so many ways that we pivot. And I think, again, I said this, I believe on the Clubhouse, in a good life, in an intentional life, where you really are eking out all of your gifts and all of your talents, you almost have to anticipate and embrace that pivots are going to come. That maybe the closest people in your world today will not be the closest people in your world 3, 5, 10 years from now. And that's okay, you know?
And I think that the really cool thing about like you talking about your story and the pivots that you've kind of gone through, like first starting off as like an actress in front of the camera and then wanting to go behind the camera. I think that a lot of people, when they pivot, they think they start back over from zero. But you pivoting from in front of the camera to behind the camera just gave you the one up on anyone on this side of the camera that's never experienced what it's like to be the actress, the model on the other side of the camera. That feels awkward. People assume that those people are just professional people in front of the camera. That's what they're getting paid to do. And then when you step back and you're like, okay, well, like the relationship that the camera person and the people in front of the camera have, that's important. And that like moved you towards everything that you've pivoted. Like, you have to realize that every experience comes along with you. Yes, you might be starting over with a completely different company, a completely different story, all new people in your life. But the cool thing is, like, we learn as we go. So for me, there were so many different careers that I bounced around in. And I was like, okay, what do I love? What do I love about each of them? I learned something about myself. I loved certain things about them. And I did. There was times where I was just like, this isn't what I want to do. I'm not feeling like I'm in the right spot. And the more I learned, I was just like, you know what? Like because I think sometimes we forget that there's so many things that we have that other people don't, but we have it. So we don't understand that that's something that we can offer the world. And when you work and focus on those types of things, and it's self-love, self-reflect, which 2020 gave most of us that time. It was time to just be like, let's self-reflect and figure out, hey, what do I love doing? Why do I not feel right here? And you ask those questions, because it's easy to say this isn't right and just pick something else to do. But if you say, what do I love? What don't I like? Then you can start to maneuver your way around purposely pivoting into a direction that you want to go into in life. And I think that a lot of people allow life to kind of just slap them back and forth. But I think that in 2020, a lot of people did. The people who had been practicing purposely pivoting, they're like, okay, we're in a pandemic. We're in the middle of social injustice. We're about to have an election that's going to divide this nation. What can I do to help, or what can I do to succeed? And those people,
and who do I want to
mindset,
be? Yeah. And I think it's also, who do I want to be? You know,
yeah.
It's not always who have I been, it's who am I becoming? You know, who am I stepping into being, right? And you dropped so many gems there, and I want to pick up on some of them. I also want to make sure that anybody who's here, I'm like blind as a bat, so can you read their names? Hi to all of you. If you have questions, let us know. I definitely want to make sure that you feel seen and heard and loved. If we were in 3D at a live event, which I love to host in Southern California here, I'm in Laguna Beach, but I was in LA for years, I would squeeze you. So I just want you to know that your questions matter to me. So definitely ask your questions. But the other thing that I would say is, as we're talking about pivoting and these different life seasons, and what you really honed in on, and it's so true. It's funny. It's actually my tagline: start over, end better, without starting fresh. I think that's the mistake that so many of us, myself included, when we know, I don't belong here anymore. And there's more for me out there. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know it's not this. I know there's more. We sometimes, and I did this for a long time, We shrink to fit. You know, my life felt 3 sizes too small for like a long time, like an embarrassingly long time. But what was good was so good. And what seemed like a potential to be great just seemed so scary, just seemed so uncertain. And that idea of I'm going to have to start fresh was actually inaccurate, because what you just highlighted is so, so true. You don't start fresh. When you get really curious, and certainly working with a strategist and a coach and being in great community, you know, I'm so lucky to have the people in my world that I go to for my support system, but also to be a support system for so many. In that type of environment, with that type of energy and that type of engagement, you ask better questions, you get better answers, and suddenly you're getting feedback, and people are mirroring back to you your strengths, your skills, your stories. They help synthesize for you who you really are, and you're like, oh yeah, that's who I am, right? I forgot, right? And I think when we hit a setback, and again, I've hit so many setbacks, when we've had a rejection, we have almost like amnesia. We totally forget how capable we are, how invested and worthwhile and dedicated and devoted we can be,
So
right?
someone
How
said, can you expand on when you felt like your life was 3 sizes too small?
I can. Technically, yes, I can. That is possible. Those words could come out of my mouth. I'm gonna tell you a couple things. One, I'm really tired. So we just hosted this clubhouse. If you weren't with us, I'm sorry. It was fire. So I'm a little punchy and I'm a little tired. Two, I want to talk about this, and I certainly will talk about it more and more. But I want to talk about it when I feel a little less exhausted. I will tell you this. I have known what it feels like to be the underdog. I have known what it feels like to be the one left behind. I know what it feels like to be a survivor, because me too. I know what it feels like to be told, oh, you're a Jill of all trades, and feeling kind of like, ugh, fuck. You know, like why don't I just have that one thing that I can hang my hat on? You know, why do I gotta be this multi-passionate, creative, entrepreneur, ally, crazy person, right? That can make for some schizophrenic feelings about yourself, right? Um, I know what it feels like to sometimes be a late bloomer and be like, man, I thought these things were going to come much earlier, right? And I am co-authoring a book that's about to come out this chapter, just in a few weeks here, all about resiliency. And I talk about some of those times where I got kicked in the teeth, you know, and I've definitely known my fair share of traumas. We could talk about all sorts of things. And I don't say that as if I'm unique. You know, I don't know that there's a single human on this planet that hasn't endured some trauma, whether it's a childhood trauma, a relationship trauma, a career or business humiliation, you know, sophomore slump, rejection, whatever it might be, betrayal trauma, where you just feel bludgeoned. Like it boggles the mind. You can't see straight. You not only wonder, how can I trust anyone ever again? But you think, can I trust me again? You know, it chokes you, it challenges you. So those are the things that I would say. I have certainly been knocked down 10 times, but I feel grateful that I've gotten up like 12.
Yeah.
You know, so if you feel like you're hearing me and you also are resilient, like I literally think of you as like my people. You know, we're
Yeah.
like the comeback kids. We're the resilient ones, right?
Yeah. I
And that's
mean, for me,
it's a gift.
perfect. Like I've learned that you have to create the structure to help you get up sometimes. Like
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to, like, if you're the type of person that just feels like you're not in the right space right now and you are going to have to fight to get there, I've found that you have to surround yourself with people who are going to help you get back up, because there are people that will not be helpful. They're going to be the ones that are like, see, I told you you would fail. And if you're surrounded by that, you can get into a really, really negative mindset about how things, you'll give up really quickly. And
Mhm.
I've learned that if I've got people that are like, you know what, I'm rooting for you, you've got this, we believe in your message, the things that you talk about, it's just like, we've got you.
Yeah.
And I've created an environment with my friends, with my surroundings. Like, I've moved a lot. I've lived in 7 different states, and I felt like I was chasing something and also running away from what I should have been embracing. And it wasn't until I was like, you know
Mhm.
what? Like, let's deal with this stuff. Let's learn about who this person right here is and learn to love this person. And then let's chase after a goal so that when we chase after the goal, it's, I know that this is what I need to be chasing after. Because before I felt like I was
Mhm.
chasing after an identity. Like I didn't have one. I was trying to find one
Yes.
and I was chasing it when the real thing was it's right here. Like I was running from it and not healing from what I needed to heal from. And it wasn't
Yeah.
until I took that time to just like say, okay, who are you? What do you love about yourself? Find that part about yourself. Because like jumping in all these clubhouse rooms, there's been a lot of people that jump up into the like they're in the audience and then have their question about how to build their platform, how to do all this. And when they are
Mhm.
asked to pitch themselves, they're like, what I'm going for is what kind. Well, I'm like,
Yeah, does
uh,
anyone here relate to that? If you relate to having been that person yourself, where you're like, oh my God, I'm the worst. I
it's
don't know
just
how to
like,
give a
okay,
succinct elevator pitch, or I don't know how to ask a succinct question. You're certainly not alone, but that's a skill set to be developed like anything as well. I want to go back to so much of what you said. And also, all of you, thank you. Hello, hello. It's so nice to see you. Maybe we can recap and go through some of the questions in a minute here. I want to make sure that you all get your questions answered. And if you didn't, for any reason, you can direct message me afterwards and we can continue this conversation. But you touched on so many things. One of them is having that support system. You know, the world is going to knock you on your ass. And if you are someone who is creative and entrepreneurial, who has a strong value system where you don't mind going first and saying, hey, this is wrong. It's categorically wrong. Here's why. I want to bring you into this conversation to educate you, whether that's about unearned white privilege, whether that's about any corner of bigotry that we could talk about, right? If you are a creative entrepreneurial person who is willing to go first, to say the thing that nobody wants to say, to do the thing that nobody wants to do, you are going to face rejection. You are going to face criticism. You are going to have doubt dealers on every corner, in addition to the own doubt dealers that you have in your mind. So what you're talking about is so essential, right? It's not a luxury. It is essential. And it doesn't have to be 20 people. It could be one, it could be two. You know, if you're fortunate enough and lucky enough to get into a hive and into a community, whether it's a mastermind or it's a coaching group, awesome. But you just need one. You just need one person that's like, hey, I see you, I hear you, we're still going, baby. It's not over. You might feel done, but it's not over, right? And I know in my own life, it was easier to find that when I was willing to be transparent, when I was willing to say, like, I don't have this. It looks like I got it all together. I 100% assure you I do not. And the
yeah,
moment I did that, and we talked about this on the clubhouse, people can start to show up to support you. The mistake that I made, and so many of us make, is trying to keep the stuff that's really scary and really sad and really hard, like behind closed doors, because we think that we're the only one. I assure you, whatever thing you have that you shame spiral around, I guarantee you, you are not the only one. You are as imperfectly perfect as every other person on this planet. You are as special and as not unique as every other person on this planet. And so the moment that you start to And I wouldn't suggest doing it all over the internet necessarily. I would suggest doing it with a trusted confidant, saying like, hey, I need help with this. Like I have a blind spot, or, it looks like I'm okay in this area. I'm actually struggling and I'm wondering if I could talk to you about it. You diffuse the tension, like all the anxiety and all the depression and all the stress that you're holding into your body and your nervous system will almost instantaneously release
Yeah.
just by naming it. And then you also give people permission themselves to be more real, to be more transparent. And when you do that, you create more intimacy, you create more connection. You now are leaning into the relationship, as opposed to like having your representatives show up and be representing each of you, right? Like with some mask on.
Yeah.
The other thing that I will say, and again, this is sort of counterintuitive, so it's everything's nuance. I guess what's important to me. Paradoxically, you'll want to be really, really mindful of who that is, or whom that is, if it's a handful of people. And speaking of pivoting, sometimes you will outgrow your partner, you will outgrow your inner circle, you'll outgrow a family member, right? And that's okay. I know I've had the experience where I went to someone who was a loved one, a trusted one, with my deepest shames and hurts and vulnerabilities. And all I needed was for them to look back at me and say, like, it's okay. I know you feel that way. You have every right to feel that way. It makes sense that you would feel that way. But let me remind you of who you are. Like, that's not really true. But sometimes, and it's not because they're bad people. Sometimes people don't know how to do that. They don't have the capacity. They don't have the language. They're burnt out. They're tired. They're like, can you just figure this out already? Like, I'm tired of it not being figured out. So there's so much nuance to this. But that's when I would say the difference between working with someone who is a trained coach, trained therapist, versus only going to your partner or only going to your friend or only going to your family member. Not everyone is equipped to have that level of empathy, that level of curiosity, that level of patience, right?
Yeah. I
And
mean,
so
especially if
sometimes
you're
you just
working
can't
with
get those needs met.
people who their lives are like intertwined with your own. Like
Yeah,
if you're going to them with advice, their advice is going to be a little bit more biased because
sure.
they're tied into you. And one thing I went through was I had someone that I shared everything with, and we were like in sync. We were going in the same direction with each other. But as soon as like
Mm-hmm.
my life kind of took a little bit of a turn and was no longer in line with this person's life, every vulnerability I shared was weaponized and turned into I was a horrible person because I was choosing to move in which direction was best for myself. And that can really
Mm-hmm.
hurt, but you do have to realize that in those situations, like you do need to walk away from that. If it's better for you, go right ahead. Like at that point, you guys are going to have to split ways. You never know if it's going to come back. You have to realize
Mm-hmm.
that your friends, your family members, your relationships, sometimes their advice is guiding you in the direction they want you to be so that you can continue on their path. It's not necessarily the advice to get you where you're supposed to be. And like one thing that I say
You
on
make
all my lives is because I saw someone in the comments talking about like pride and being able to have conversations with people and not be critical and cynical about their criticism. But I've found that if you are 100% authentic, yes, sometimes that can be a knife in the heart. But when people say, you've got this, when they say, I love you for everything that you are, you will believe that because you have given them your true self. And if they believe in your true self, then you can also believe in it. Whereas if you put on a mask and try to pretend to be someone to impress them, to make them think that you're some high class, whatever you are trying to do, and you're really not, and you're struggling, when they tell you, you've got this, you are amazing, you won't believe any of it. You will be
right.
like, well, if you knew the real thing, like you're saying that because of all these lies I've created. And if you are honest and just you're like authentic with the world, like people will
Yeah.
see you're struggling and it's okay. We all do. But if you
Yeah.
struggle internally and pretend to be something you're not, like you're battling something that you could have shared and someone could have easily just stepped in and said, hey, here's your solution, come with me. But if they don't know it exists, they can't help you.
I think you touched on so many important things. Again, you're so good at this. You look in the comments and see what questions are coming up. Again, if any of these questions don't get answered, direct message me afterwards. We're talking about pivoting in your personal life, pivoting in your professional life, so that no matter what life throws at you, you can still feel like you're using your talents and you're using your gifts and you're on your purpose and you've got some sense of control and creative direction and you can perform at your best and you can really reach your potential no matter what. You might get detoured, you might feel down, but you're not done. But one of the things that came up for me as you're talking about, and you even said this at the beginning, if you're too enmeshed, if you're too merged with someone, and sometimes that can be a partner, and your identities have even gotten sort of entangled, your lives have gotten entangled, and this certainly is an experience that I know something about.
Yeah.
It's even that much harder. It's even that much harder to do the brave, bold thing, which is to raise your hand and say, hey, I feel like this is 3 sizes too small. I feel like I'm not getting to be who I know I'm meant to be and supposed to be. I feel like I got cast almost in the wrong role, right? And it's hard to know that that's even happening sometimes because it can be really insidious. Or what, in my experience, what's good is so good that you're
One
like, well, I don't want to lose what's good because what's good is like amazing,
one
right?
thing that someone in another clubhouse room said that I feel like would just be perfect right here is
Mm.
don't waste your time playing a minor role in someone else's movie when your movie where you are the main actress is right over here. Like
Hi,
don't
baby.
waste your life.
Preach.
Don't waste your life playing an insignificant role in someone else's life when you've got the opportunity to be the star of your own movie. Like when they said that, like I got chill bumps because I was just like, oh my God, like there were so many times where I played that minor role and
Me
just
too.
wanted to,
Yeah.
was like, just show me attention, even if it's like I get to wave in the background, like that's fine. And then I realized, like, why am I begging for that type of attention when I can step over here and
Mm-hmm.
now it's my show. It's my life. I don't have to beg for scraps. Like I can go out
Yeah.
there and if I've got a goal, I can do it and
Mm-hmm.
people are going to love me for me instead of me being in the shadow of someone else's life.
Again, yeah, I think you're talking about, and this happens all the time, right? If someone feels like they're getting breadcrumbs, you're getting breadcrumbs. If you feel it, it's probably pretty accurate. And then the really hard piece is not betraying yourself. So betrayal trauma has so many pieces to it, right? You can get betrayed by someone. Sometimes you've betrayed yourself first. You've abandoned yourself first. You've lost yourself
Yeah.
because you're trying to fit a square peg through a round hole. I know for me, and this again, it comes from trauma. I'm just going to be radically honest. I just wanted to stay. Like, just let me stay. Just keep everything together and everyone together because family meant so much to me and longevity meant so much to me and feeling included and like I'm where meant so much to me. And it's one of my top values. It's why I'm such a vocal ally and have been for a long, long time. I want everyone to know that they are welcome here. And yet the underbelly of that and the mistake that I made, I talked about this on a podcast, the Hyperconscious podcast. Y'all should check it out. We were talking about this very thing. And a hard lesson that I had to learn, speaking of resiliency, speaking of pivoting, was in 2019. I recognized that I had traded becoming for belonging. And that's a trade you don't want to make. And it's a trade you shouldn't have to make. You should get to be able to have both. And that's really, really important to me, that I create spaces and places for people to have both, that they can feel like they belong, that they're just enough exactly as they are. They don't have to change a single hair on their little head, that they can be loved, honored, and accepted even at their worst. And also, their vision and their dream can be held with such high regard and such conviction that it's not a question if you're going to become also something else, someone else. It's just a matter of time and strategy and intention, right? And that both those things can be true. You can feel like you are absolutely enough. You are loved, honored, and accepted exactly as you are. You belong. You're not on a chopping block. You're not getting breadcrumbs. Nobody's kicking you out. You don't have to beg to stay. You can feel safe, right? You can feel psychologically safe. I belong here. And simultaneously, you can become something new, something better. You can evolve. There's space to have both. I don't think I knew that. I think I traded again the becoming piece
Yeah.
so that I could belong, so that I could stay, so that I could feel safe.
And I think
You
that
know?
that happens in small little increments. It doesn't happen just one day. Like, so it's not so
Yes.
noticeable. It's like you slowly give yourself away or give up opportunities because honestly, like I feel like self-love, when you really focus on that, like, do you love yourself? Because I feel like people who know and have self-love don't allow themselves to settle for a life that doesn't give them the most. And someone in the comments asked, like, how do you identify your mask? And your mask is
Ooh, I
every
haven't.
single lie that you have. Like, when a friend asks you if you're okay and you say yes and you're not, that's part of your mask. If someone asks you, like, what are your dreams, and you bring them down to a more achievable dream, that's you putting another piece to your mask. Like, it's the further you go into life lying to people or making yourself seem smaller than you are, like, you're building your mask piece by piece. And
We can even do an exercise right now. Y'all want to play? Do you want to do a little a coaching exercise? I'll
let's
do a
do it.
mini training. And again, if you want to have a fuller experience, direct message me after, and we can do it more full out. So when I think of masks, there's actually a coaching exercise that I wrote for clients. And this is the prompt. And again, we're going to do a truncated version. I'm so happy that you all are here. Hi, I see all your hearts. I want you to write this down if you have a pen and paper. And the prompt is, if you really knew me, you know that I sometimes worry. You think that I am. So here's the prompt. If you really knew me, you'd know that I sometimes worry, that I think, that you think that I am. And then I want you to write down any of these words that feel true for you, that give you that little like sting. I worry sometimes that you think I'm selfish. I worry sometimes that you think I'm a know-it-all. I worry sometimes that you think I'm manipulative. I worry sometimes that you think I'm full of myself. I'm worried sometimes that you think I'm a fake. I'm worried sometimes you think I'm not smart enough. I worry sometimes you think I'm not pretty enough, young enough, capable enough. And then you can fill in whatever else comes up for you. These are just some prompts. The key here is, though, I want you to take your thumb, everybody, together, and I want you to dig it into your rib. Just dig a thumb into your rib. How uncomfortable is that, right? Just keep digging. Dig, 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 dig. That is how we are walking around in the world. That thumb in your side is that thing that you are so terrified that if people really knew you, they would know that you worry that sometimes they think that you are, whatever that thing is, right? And then what we do is, instead of being human, instead of saying like, hey, I'm doing that weird thing where my brain's freaking out. I'm wondering and worrying, do you think I'm an asshole? Because I don't want you to think I'm an asshole, but I'm kind of like, is that happening? Right? And I'm not suggesting you do that in every connection, but certainly with the people that are closest to us, we can have that transparency. We can have that level of vulnerability and intimacy. But instead of doing that, we cover with a mask, often that is the opposite, right? So if you have a fear that people think you're a know-it-all, and this is one of the ones that I have, it's a trigger from childhood, to be honest, then sometimes you will put on a mask of being self-deprecating, of being quirky, of doing all these little takebacks, that
Yeah.
when you know something and you actually know it with authority and experience, you do a take back. And women in particular do this all the time. I'm actually working with a coaching client right now, striking language from her vocabulary because we're so conditioned. We'll say things. I even heard it on the Clubhouse panel. Some of the panelists, you'll share something that you know with absolute certainty, absolute conviction, absolute authority, wisdom, expertise, stats backing it up, fact. And then afterwards, you'll be like, I don't know, does that make any sense? Right? And
Yeah.
it's because maybe we don't want to seem like a know-it-all. We don't want to seem like, oh, we're coming in hot. We want to be approachable. We want to be appeasable. We want to be likable, right? And certainly marginalized groups, and I can only speak from my experience as a woman, we've literally been conditioned to do that. I know, here's a really embarrassing but true example. Again, I'm punch drunk, so I'm going to tell you just how it is. Just like, tell you the truth. I can't tell you, I still do this to this day. And this is totally because I have that thumb in the side of I don't want anybody to think I'm too big for my britches or I'm a know-it-all. There are things that I have written, let's say a quote or a statement or a coaching exercise, that I will share with the client, or I can remember doing this on the podcast. I can remember doing this at live events. I might even do it at Clubhouse. I might catch myself sometimes doing it, moderating a panel, where I won't take credit for the thing that is actually my idea, or the thing that I wrote, or the coaching exercise that I came up with. Because I worry that if I was to say, oh, you know, there's this thing that I do, or there's this thing that I wrote, and you should read it, or you should look at it, that someone might think I'm a know-it-all, or that someone might like devalue it because it's like from me. So I will do this totally ridiculous thing where I'll be like, I heard someone say once, or
Yeah.
I learned this really interesting thing in my mastermind, or my coach, I'll literally give the credit to like some mythical person. And it's totally because I don't want someone to think that I'm being like too big for my britches or a know-it-all, or I feel like they won't take it seriously. So that's just an example. I would love for anybody to chime in if there's experiences that you have. What are those thumbs in your sides that you want to share? And then how do you mask it? What are some of the things that you do? You can tell us in the chat, and you can DM me afterwards.
Yeah. I mean,
Anything come up?
I see tons of people saying, yep, they do it. Totally get that. One more time. So, I mean, when you were going through that list, I was just like, well, yep, I've done that one. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely, like, with my success on my platform, like, I feel like I rarely ever celebrate it because I'm afraid that people will think that I'm rubbing it in their face. So for me, I will be like, well, it's not that bad. Like, it's not that much. Like, everyone does this. There's people with way more followers than I do. And like,
Yeah.
I will literally like destroy
Diminish.
my image because I don't want people to like think that I'm rubbing my success in their face, where I'm like, oh my God, like I grew from 3,000 to 30,000 in a year. And for me, like literally when I saw that, like I'm sitting here like a little child, like celebrating and so excited, but I don't feel like I can celebrate that with anyone around me because I'm like, ooh, they're gonna think that I'm just like rubbing it in their face and that I think I'm better than them. And
Right.
to kind
It's
of
so
have that,
common. It's so
it's
common.
just like, well, I it's something I have to work on. And and when you were talking about like giving other people credit, I've done that. Like when it comes to how I've grown my platform and how I interact with people, there have been so many times where I'm like, yeah, I read this in a book, and I'm like, no, I didn't.
I totally said that. I've literally said that exact thing, like often, like an embarrassing amount of times. I totally get it. I'm screaming at the internet. I apologize. I'm like screaming. I love that we can connect on this. And I also love you used one of my favorite words. And now that you're in my world, I'm no longer going to allow this to happen for you. Celebration is literally, I feel like, why I'm here on this planet. I want to help people to remember, to have a good time, and that it's all right to be all right. And that you having, let's take, for example, 2020 was such a hard year for so many. And the vast majority of people are in panic. They're in what I would say is almost like a collective grief. You could even argue that there's some PTSD that's happening.
Oh yeah.
The world has just gone so far gone from what any of us could have expected or anticipated. There's no certainty, right? It causes so much anxiety. And then you add to that that we're remote. Loneliness, I've said for years, was an epidemic long before this pandemic and us being so isolated. It's only exacerbated now, right? So any low level depression or anxiety someone might have had before is now just tenfold. And in fact, I'm doing a IG Live with Gregory, who you have to know, I'll introduce you to next week, on a lot of these things, you know, because addiction is up, suicides are up. It's a really difficult time. That said, it doesn't do anyone any good if for some reason your 2020 happened to be okay. Like, you dialing down your shine doesn't actually help. What we need to do is be compassionate, be empathic, keep being educated and curious about things that matter, even if they're not our lived experience. Continue to be part of those conversations. But we don't do anyone any good by pretending that things are worse than they are, or not allowing ourselves to celebrate when things are going well, right? If anything, it's like a rising tide lifts all boats. You know, you want to take your energy, your enthusiasm, your zeal, you want to be mindful, you want to be considerate, right? If someone's grieving, you probably don't want to come in with like a, you know, cheerleading squad. But you want to be able to say, hey, I know you're in a tough season. I've been in a tough season too.
Yeah.
I'm here with you. I don't have the answers, but I'm going to sit beside you, and let's just be together. And then slowly let your energy and your levity be with them, right? And you're not pulling like a tugboat, but you're being a lighthouse, right? You're showing them a way back to shore. So celebration is so key. And again, it's not just about being an inconsiderate jerk, right? Who's bragging all the time, but it's about remembering, hey, it's all right to be all right. And when you're all right, you give me hope. You give me a reminder that life could be better than how it feels right now. Yep. Right?
So Instagram is starting to do the countdown where you're only allowed to do lives for 60 minutes now. So
oh no. Okay, so yes, because I want to make sure that we get the recording, and I want to share this recording. Everybody direct message me if you have any questions about pivoting in your personal life and your professional life. I'm your girl. Anything else before? Oh gosh, it's gonna like count down like right now.
Yeah. I used to do like 3-hour-long lives. Instagram, I guess, is punishing me for that, but
okay, we'll save this baby.
Thank you so much for doing this. Hopefully we can do a lot more. Hopefully we'll get everyone in Clubhouse doing that. Yeah. It was a pleasure, and I mean, from the comments, people love this. We can do another one on Instagram for everybody.
I can't see any of your comments, so direct message me. Thank you so much. Determination, empathy, understanding. I love it. Good.
Perfect. Well, have a good rest of your day. I know that you've had a long day, and you can put your voice to rest and curl up in bed and have a good evening.
All right. Bye all.
Bye.
Cheers.